So on today's video, I thought I'd talk to you all about Wordbug. So Wordbug, the sixth release on Boss Tuneage, released in September 1991, although it was actually the fifth one to appear because Floor 81, which was the fifth release, came out after it. It was also the first co-release that Boss Tuneage did, and we've done a lot of co-releases since then. But to speak about Wordbug, you really need to have to go back about a year or so before that to another Exeter-based band called Mad at the Sun. And I remember that Jace Kirk, who I was in a band with at the time called Sick Bus, who also helped me write my fanzine IG, sent off for the Mad at the Sun demo, and I think got the demo back and also a comp 7-inch, which was the Hometown Atrocities first compilation 7-inch, which also had Headless Chickens on it, which was Tom York from Radiohead's first band when he was at uni at Exeter. Little known fact. Again, well, probably better known fact actually. So Martin Edmonds sent up the 7-inch and demo tape to Jason. I remember the demo tape, the 4-song Mad at the Sun demo tape, we were just blown away by. It was great. It was unlike anything that we were kind of hearing from UK bands at that time. So it was quite a unique demo because you know, you had 5-minute long songs on here when everyone else was sort of rattling them out in a minute and a half. It was very much sort of influenced by the Discord end of things. I think Fugazi was quite a big influence on them, and you know, stuff like that. But they had their own unique sound, and it was different to what a lot of the UK bands were doing at the time.
What's the purpose of all this standing still? What's the satisfaction doing what you do every day of your life? And did you say you with those empty eyes? If you could say you whatever you do, whatever you say, all for the minute of a day. You don't want to be here. However you act, however you are, is where you're at. Really that far from reality. You could be here. You attack out for being casualty.
I remember we were just really excited with it, and I did toy with the idea of Mad at the Sun being the second release on Boss Tuneage after the Goo Patrol Vehicle Derek split 7-inch. Eventually I chose to do Damage, but that's another story for another video which is on this channel. So yeah, so I remember we kept in contact, and then I think Ed also had sent a tape of 2 new songs they recorded, which was, one was a re-recording of The Last Time from the demo, which ended up on Splurt 2, and another song called Stonewalling, which I don't think ever got released. I think it was planned to go on the second Hometown Atrocities 4-band sort of Exeter-based comp, but it called You're Going Home, but it didn't actually end up on there. I think they put the Last Time re-recorded version on both. So yeah, so I was really keen about doing something with Mad at the Sun, but then we kind of got the information down the grapevine they'd split up, so thought nothing more of it, and that's what sort of sent me in the direction of Damage at the time to do their 12-inch instead as the second release on Boss Tuneage. We'd also interviewed them for the fanzine, and I remember that all of a sudden, sort of unannounced, Ed sent up a demo tape of this new band that he'd formed called Wordbug, which also featured Alex Van, who from memory was in a Dorset-based band called Hate That Smile, and Paul Chambers, who I think might have been in Hate That Smile too, but I could be wrong on that. But Paul had also put out a comp LP called Living on the Edge, which was like a South Coast of England hardcore comp. And they sent this 3-song demo through, and it was great. It was different than Mad at the Sun, but again, it sounded pretty unique at the time. And I remember the last track, Mountains Too Many of You, really sort of made an impact, and we kind of I asked Ed at that time if we could put that on the Floor 81 compilation album that I was working on, and it ends up there as the last track. Soon after that, they recorded a second demo with 6 songs on it called Feeling Nothing and a Whole Lot Better For It, I think, from memory. And that had a lot of the songs that ended up being the basis of what would become the Losing It All LP. And again, I just remember that we were really, it just sounded really innovative at the time, and there was no other sort of UK band that sounded like this. And so I think I had a phone conversation with Ed about the Floor 81 LP at some point, and he said, look, we want to do a Wordbug album, and would you like to co-release it with Hometown Atrocities? To which I said, oh yeah, I'd love to. And I think the reason why they wanted to do it as co-release as well, and Ed was really upfront about this, was that he had a round the world trip for a year planned. So the idea was to get it out before they went away, record the album and do a small tour, but then it was on the understanding that there'd be kind of no follow-up gigs for at least a year whilst he was away touring around the world. Which I said, yep, so I was quite happy to sort of be involved in it, and I think that's why they wanted another label on there, so that there was a point of contact whilst he was away. So I remember it actually came about really quickly from memory, and David, who'd been the bass player at Mad at the Sun, who wasn't a member of Wordbug at this point, but would be once they sort of came back again. He did the album sleeve. It was a really nice design, and I remember that PJ Harvey's album came out after it actually, and so a lot of people look at it and go, oh, they ripped off PJ Harvey, but they didn't. It was actually the first one of the two. And I remember we sent it out, and it got some really good reviews. I think that Select magazine reviewed it from memory, and also Spiral Scratch magazine, which was kind of like a record collector as well, I think. But it got around, and it was all generally really good. And I think that what set it apart at the time was sort of like the rhythms and drum beats that they were using. They weren't your archetypal hardcore punk drum beats being used on these songs, and I think that's what sort of made it sound quite innovative at the time. I mean, talking about the rhythm section, that was Nigel Coleman and Dan Schwarm were the drummer and bass player on that album, and they were also in a band called Useful Idiot, and Nigel would go on to do Dead Inside many years later when he moved to London. Who obviously released quite a few bits and pieces. I think what people really liked about Losing It All was that it sounded different. It sounded different to a lot of what the UK bands were doing. I remember it at the time, sort of people even comparing them to the likes of like Neds and Blur even. And I think it was it was almost like it was at the time where the whole Manchester dance kind of thing was happening as well, so it just had some more unusual rhythms in there, but it worked, and it's what made the band unique. we actually played a show with Wordbug and Goober Patrol at the Nutley Shelley Arms, I think with the BBMFs as well, and that must have been on the Wordbug tour, and I think that's where I actually got hold of my share of the vinyl records, because they'd literally picked them up from the pressing plant to have for these shows. It was on that tight a turnaround at the time. So I remember it went pretty well. I think that I can't remember how many we had, if we went half and half on it or not, but I know that we sort of had copies, went to Plastic Head and they sold them, and I don't think we had copies for that long. We only pressed 500 of it, obviously with not having a band to sort of support it after the first wave, that made sense. So yeah, so not a lot happened really when Ed was away. So when Ed got back from his round the world trip, there was already the offer from Meantime Records to do the second album, waiting for the band. The band did reform. I don't think they could track down Dan, or Dan didn't want to do it, so David Goodchild came in from Mad at the Sun to play bass. I know that meantime Ian Armstrong was a real fan as well, and I think he offered to do the second album by them, Nothing Clear Remains, and they went into the studio and recorded Nothing Clear Remains for what was then SMR, still Meantime Really, because Ian had reset the label up. Which I was all fine about, because at the time I think I'd said to Ran and Shutdown about doing their albums, so you know, to do another second Wordbug album was going to be a push for me at the time, because of just, you know, not having any cash to get these releases out that I wanted to do. So I remember Ed sent me the tape of Nothing Clear Remains, and it was I loved it, absolutely loved it. It was slower, it was not as fast paced as Losing It All had been, and yeah, it would have been a brilliant album, but sadly SMR folded before it could be released. Ian stopped doing the label. They did a couple of tours to support that upcoming album that never appeared, and I think that actually paid, at that point Alex decided he didn't want to do the band anymore. They had got in Steve Craig on guitar as well, so they were a five-piece when they recorded the second album. So they were left with kind of this album that was rapidly going out of date, but they had a tour in Belgium planned, and that's how the split 7-inch with Bytail came along, and so again they decided to do that on Hometown Atrocities and asked if I would co-release that with them, which I was happy to do. I remember the band had actually gone in and recorded a couple more songs after Losing It All, before Ed went away, and one of those was I Don't Doubt It, and I love that song, and I think I was kind of keen to put it on a 7-inch. But obviously they re-recorded it for Nothing Clear Remains. I think they recorded Nothing Clear Remains in like late 1992, and by late 1993 it looked like it wasn't going to be able to come out, because SMR had folded by then. So they decided, well, we're doing a tour with a band called Bytail in Belgium, and Bytail featured Stefan, who'd been in a band called Outsmarted, who I'd actually interviewed for the fanzine. And Stefan would later do the Dag Nasty tribute CD, Her Head's on Fire. So they decided they wanted something for these shows, so they used I Don't Doubt It and Almost Real from the Nothing Clear Remains recording as their side of that split 7-inch. At that point Alex decided he didn't want to do the band anymore. They had got in Steve Craig on guitar as well, so they were a five-piece when they recorded the second album. They then went down to a four-piece, and I believe that lineup is the one that recorded the Locked In 7-inch. So they went back into the studio and recorded Locked In, and another song called No Time for Second Guess, and that became another 7-inch single that we put out as a Hometown Atrocities Boss Tuneage co-release. That must have been early in 1994. And then later in 1994 we did another co-release, this time with Fluffy Bunny Records, because I think Lawrence, who ran Fluffy Bunny, I think sadly no longer with us now, really liked the band as well. So they did a new song called Die, and we used Waiting from the Nothing Clear Remains sessions as the B-side on that. So as an aside to this, at the time, just before the Wordbug album came out, I'd actually been persuaded by Plastic Head to let them do the UK distribution for the label. Up until that point I'd been using SRD, and Plastic Head had been doing the export, and that worked quite well, the two doing that, but Plastic Head were keen to do the UK as well, so Wordbug was the first release that went to Plastic Head completely at the time, and then Floor 81 after that, and unfortunately they didn't really sell that well. There was no sort of major increase from them having the UK sales as well. But also then it got quite a bit hard to get money out of Plastic Head, I remember at the time as well. So by the time we came to do the 7-inch singles, I'd actually gone with my tail back between my legs to SRD and moved all the distribution away from Plastic Head back to SRD. So I think that because I had the SRD connection, that was kind of the main reason why we did the Hometown Atrocities Boss Tuneage co-releases, because Hometown Atrocities didn't really have shop distribution sorted out, or didn't want to deal with SRD, and they thought I had a better deal with them. So very much on those 7-inch singles, I was very much involved more in the distribution side of them and the mail order side. For example, I didn't actually organise the pressings of those 3 7-inch singles. Hometown Atrocities and the band organised the pressings themselves, and then I just took copies to sell via the shops via SRD and for mail order. So soon after the band had recorded those extra songs for the 7-inch singles, I believe Steve Craig left the band and was replaced by John Tripe. And it was John who went on tour with the band to Belgium for some shows supporting those 7-inch singles, of which some video footage does exist. And that was pretty much it. We kept in touch, but by sort of the autumn of 1994, I'd graduated by that time from university, and I'd started working at Earache Records. And part of the condition of me working at Earache was that I wasn't allowed to run my own label. So that was going to make things a bit difficult to carry on doing the label. So I remember in 1995, I had this brilliant idea to actually start a brand new label with a new name. And so I chose the old Rut song from The Crack, Out of Order, and I was going to start a brand new label called Out of Order Records. And the first release on that was going to be Wordbug again. They recorded some new songs. I think it was 6 songs, but we were going to put like out a 4-track CD single. This is the mid-90s and CD singles were all the rage then. And so we got that all together as Out of Order, and I remember Ed turned around saying, well, if you're changing the name of the record label, then we might change the name of the band. I was like, oh, all right then. Okay, and that's at the point where they changed their name to Annalise and would carry on, and obviously I'll speak about Annalise on another video. But yeah, Wordbug, if you're not familiar, do go and check them out. So we did actually end up putting Losing It All Out, doing a CD reissue of that, and included tracks from the unreleased second album and the 7-inch singles. And so that's probably your best place to start hunting down Wordbug if you're not familiar with them. That's it for this video. I'll speak to you on the next one.